Aloha. Welcome to Ably Seminar Sessions. This session, we're going to be talking about what's in a deed, elements of a deed. And there's quite a few elements or parts to a deed that the attorneys have to think about as they're drafting the deed. The deed has to be a written instrument. The statute of frauds in Hawaii, as well as across the country, says that when you have a legal document, it must be in writing. It cannot be verbal. The only verbal agreement that's acceptable is when you have a lease of 1 year or less of a rental. But besides that, everything else has to be in writing. And even with the verbal lease, attorneys are saying, even if you have a 6-month or 3-month or 9-month lease, you should have it in writing and it should not be verbal because you don't have anything that has a paper trail and you don't know what you discussed and what you agreed to. So everything should be in writing. Second, do you have to have a date? And what's interesting, in the law, it says a date is not absolutely necessary. And you go, what? Why shouldn't you have a date? Because the law says you don't have to have a date. But should you have a date? Absolutely. Which is kind of silly, isn't it? The law says you don't have to have a date, but really, in reality, you should have a date. The third component is you should have a legal capacity of the grantor. So the grantor is the one that's signing the deed over to the grantee. The grantor has to be of legal mind, legal age, in Hawaii, 18 or older. And they cannot be forced to sell or to sign documents, and they cannot be threatened physically or mentally. And so the grantor must be of legal mind, legal age, and sound, and they cannot be coerced into signing the deed. The other part of a deed is the grantee. You have to have a named grantee. In other words, who are you giving the property to or who are you selling it to? Now, we said that the grantor has to be of legal mind, legal age, not coerced to sell or to sign the document, but the grantee can be mentally incompetent. They can be underage because if the grantee was mentally incompetent, then they could always hire or appoint a guardian. So the grantee does not have to be of legal mind and legal age, but the grantor does. And it also says that if the grantee's name is not clear and correct, but you kind of know who it is, then misspelling is okay. And if you have a famous person like Madonna, I don't know what Madonna's legal name is, but everybody knows who Madonna is as a singer. So if a person is famous and people know who that person is, the grantee's name could be Madonna rather than the legal name. But typically you'd want to have the legal name in the deed. The document also says you have to have what they call consideration. Consideration is the purchase price. How much are you buying this property for? So let's say you're buying the property for $600,000. The consideration is $600,000. But the deed does not mention the price. Usually when you read a deed, you'll say for $10, $20 and good, valuable consideration. So they don't have to have an actual dollar amount in the deed. But do you have to have a consideration? Yes. Now, where there's an exception is when the property is given to a devisee. Remember the device and devisor? In a device, it's a gift through a will or a trust. And so when you give a gift for no consideration, no money was changed hands, then it's a gift. And in that case, the consideration is love and affection. But if it's for valuable consideration, then you have to put for good and valuable consideration. So the attorneys put both in there. So valuable consideration, you paid reasonably fair market value. For good consideration, it was because of love and affection. Another component in a deed is what they call words of conveyance. The document has to say, I'm going to grant, I'm going to give. There has to be some wording that says, I have the intent of actually giving this property. And that's called granting conveyance. So there's parts of the deed where it's stipulated that you must have certain wording. Now, there's no specific wording, but it has to have that intent. So we covered some parts of what's in a deed. The next session will cover the rest of the deed and what's entailed in the deed. Aloha.